Hello and welcome to Dungeoneered, a podcast dedicated to discussing Dungeons and Dragons. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Josh.
Let's do this. So Josh, for the last, I think 3 weeks now, we've been kind of doing this little lukewarm open series of kind of creating a D&D campaign with like no time and not like a ton of background or thought put into the process. So the idea is 4 people come up to you and like, hey, let's play D&D. You're going to be the DM. Make a campaign. And you're like, cool, I'll do it. And so we kind of been running through that. The last couple weeks, we've kind of developed this kind of rudimentary basic story of a group of 3 or a group of third level players kind of find themselves making their way through the wilderness when a airship crashes. The airship kind of crashes near them and they go and investigate and find the scene completely ruined and destroyed, as you would at an airship crash. During this time, there's one survivor who ends up giving them a item of some kind, which we haven't quite discussed yet. They then take that item, make their way into the first town available, stay there for the night or stay there for however long they need, and then they head out of that town. Now, in the town, we kind of had them being kind of not saved, but helped out by somebody within the town who helps them either navigate through this airship crash, like the blame that might have been put on them. And this person that kind of helps them is connected in a way, or possibly is, it just depends how long the campaign would go, connected with the big bad evil guy. And so the party ends up leaving the town with the item, but this guy who helped them wants the item. And as they leave, they get ambushed by a group of bandits with like some hellhounds and deathhounds, which kind of make the party think, okay, why are these things attacking us? Because it was clearly an ambush, clearly set up. So I kind of wanted to pick up there, and I kind of wanted to discuss a little bit about this town and this item, because we didn't really talk about what the item is. And I think this is probably going to be the last lukewarm open for this, because I want it to be kind of like a really quick, we've only done it for an hour, right? You've only thought about this for a total of like an hour of time. So what do you think this item is?
I want to say that I think we shouldn't do anything with the item.
We shouldn't do anything with the item?
Nothing with the item, because I think the item needs to be campaign specific. So you have to think about like if somebody wants to throw this in, the item it's important for whatever story or thing you're trying to go through.
See, but I kind of want us to think like what would we do with this item? What would we want to do with this item if we didn't have time to make a full-fledged campaign? Like what do we think this looks like? Because we're making this campaign right now. So what is the item that we think it is? Is it some sort of magical,
make it an
powerful
egg.
Arcane item? You make it an egg?
Mm-hmm. A chicken egg.
An egg of...
No.
Hey guys, we're being hunted by these potentially dangerous monsters because we've got a chicken egg.
Hey, they're hungry. What can I say?
They hungry.
No. I mean, I would be funny if you make it look like a larger chicken egg and it's like a cockatrice.
Or like the classic one would be like a dragon, right? That's like probably the common.
I mean, so any of my party who just was in the one shot that we just did, I would say skip like a minute ahead. I teased. They got too nervous and stopped partway in, but they were about to discover
Wait. Are you telling me that you're a tease, Josh?
What?
Never mind. Keep going. Never mind.
Well, if we hit the minute mark, I have to stop.
Soul.
So they almost
You're right.
They almost discovered a phoenix egg.
Ooh.
But then they got too nervous and were like, "Hey, what if this is something super dangerous?" So they stopped.
What would you have done with the phoenix egg?
I mean, they would carry it around for the campaign until it hatches, unless they sell it.
And then they would have a phoenix, which would be super cool.
At some point,
Do you think in this like scenario, an egg is a good idea in our little scenario.
It's totally a thing. Yeah, it totally would work. Because the nice thing about an egg is it's not something that they can just go and identify and then be like, oh, it's this. Like, they kind of get it identified and they'll be like, oh, it's an egg. It's a dragon egg, or it's a whatever egg, or it's a basilisk egg, whatever it is. If they want to like figure out why the people are hunting it, they have to do a lot more other things than just figuring out what it does. One, they could wait till it hatches, which would take a while, depending on however long you want to take to actually develop that storyline and figure out why were they chasing this egg.
This kind of reminds me, and I don't know if you've read the books or watched the movie, gross, but it kind of reminds me of Aragon.
I have read all of the books. I loved that series as a kid.
Because that's a very, I mean, I still love that series, but that's a really big part of Aragon in the very beginning, is finding an egg, and it's being hunted for, essentially.
Yes,
it is. That could be a really fun thing. I kind of want to discuss a few other options, though. What else do you think could possibly be what
a piece of something?
Like a piece of an arcane device, or a piece of
like a piece of an arcane device, or if you want it to be more of a steampunk world, a part of a literal device, a literal mechanical device.
I mean, you could go the full doomsday. This is like a bomb device. You could do something like that too.
You could also make it a key. And it doesn't. I used to think that these had to be literal keys. They don't have to be literal keys. For the spell plane shift, you have to have a key, quotation marks,
right,
to another plane. And so maybe this is an item that is linked to an exterior plane, that the only way you can get there is if you have a key to it.
Well, and if you went that route, I mean, there's a lot of things you could do with that. Like you could have there be some sort of like, golem army or something in a plane that this was the key to open it, to like start their apocalypse or whatever. You could do something like that. You could do this.
Yeah, you could. It's the upgrades to the Securitrons to make them a actual fighting force.
Yeah. Yep. Or I mean, you can
completely
do, like,
our own idea. Never. It's not from anything.
Never done before ever. But I mean, there's always a good one too. Like I said, God. You could do like a lich or something.
I like the idea of like an army waiting, to open it, which is kind of related to our topic this week as one of the things that. Well, I mean, I don't go into any detail on it, but as I was researching our topic this week, the place we're talking about was attacked once by Daemon Fae, and part of what the Daemon Fae were trying to do is that they were trying to get access to where to unlock their whole demon army.
Yeah, and like that.
And
I love.
They had what's called a lore gem, which they couldn't open. So what they did is when they attacked the city, they left this lore gem inside the city, hoping that these people would unlock it because they couldn't. And then once they would unlock it, they would take it back. Which maybe that's what this thing is. Maybe that's what the item is. It's a lore gem or some sort of thing that holds information that the bad guys literally can't access. So they need someone else to get it, unlock it, then they'll steal it back.
Interesting. That could be super interesting. What if... Because I love the idea. I mean, I love the two ideas that I like the most. I love the egg, first of all. I think that's a really, really fun idea. I just have a hard time thinking, like, what... I mean, I guess somebody could want a dragon or a beast for numerous different reasons. Or, like, it's an egg for, like, a purple worm to dig under a wall of a city or something. But, like, I don't know, like, that's a little bit hard for me to see long term, which I guess that's totally fine because you could do something short term with that, no problem, right?
I mean, this could literally be a side venture of this person. This doesn't have to be his main bread and butter. It could be like, oh, he sells exotic animals on the side, and this was one of his most precious possessions, and it got stolen from him.
Yeah, but for some reason, I like it. I think I like it to be a little bit more. I don't know, a little bit more. I like my worlds to have like devastating problems that are occurring and they need heroes to solve them.
Well, yeah, but I don't think that level 1 characters need to be immediately brought into those types of adventures.
No.
Even though those could be going around constantly around them, I don't think they need to be brought in. I early on in DMing did that and tried to get them involved, and to the point where the party would literally just be like I give them these plot hooks and they're like, well, that's clearly like super strong and like it's like world ending. We're level 5. I don't think we should get involved. And I was like, now that they say that, that kind of makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. No, it
but
does.
It was one of
but
those
what
things
I like
that while
about
I was planning, I didn't think about it as in that terms.
But I think what I like about, obviously you have to be careful with what you were saying, but what I like about an item is you can like leave it kind of unknown for a long time, right? You can, just a thing that they have now for a while, and they, maybe every once in a while they try to get identified, which is what I was going to talk a little bit about later. But like you can have it be for a long time, like this key to like this other plane or like a place that they cannot access, that like an enemy can't access, is a super fun idea because you can just put it in holding for a long time. You don't really know what you're going to do with it, but it's there,
Mm-hmm.
So that could be super fun. And then you can do a couple things with it. You can either go, oh no, it's the end. Like maybe, as the campaign progresses, you're like, okay, yes, I want this to be like an army that's going to invade if the enemy gets it and opens up this portal. Or you can go, oh, you open it and it's tons of treasure, right? Maybe you're just all of a sudden like, there's another story that's developing that I like better. So instead of this being the end of the world item, it's all of a sudden a place to a treasure trove, right? Or a place to, like you were kind of saying too, like something with a ton of lore in it, like a library or something cool like that. So you could do like all sorts of different things if it was a key to another plane that kind of like allowed them to travel to this extra space. And then also too, if they're 10th, 12th level, 13th level, maybe it even can turn into like a pocket dimension space for them that they use. So there's like a huge bunch of stuff they can use that you can kind of go with, that isn't necessarily the end of the world if another story thread kind of develops that you like more for your big bad evil guy or whatever. And eventually you can possibly, there's a lot of things that a big bad evil guy can do with the pocket plane, and some of them we've already talked about. So I think it's a really, really good point that can have major ramifications, but then also be something that all of a sudden, like, that the party would love. Like if I was, in a group and, 15 sessions in, it turns out that this thing that we found out in the beginning actually just leads to a rich shop owner's, like magical or wizard's magical storage unit, essentially, and you get to just loot a bunch of cool stuff. That would be so much fun. Or like it's maybe even turn it into like a little maze that they have to go through and find different stuff, right? Be super fun. So I think that's a really good way to go. The last thing I want to talk about before we move on, is like in this town, because the first thing that I would want to do if I was a player during this time would be like, okay, what is this item and how can I get it identified? How would you go about having them identify it? Would you let them identify it? How long would you kind of wait for it to be identified?
Because I'm thinking this is a smaller town. I don't think this is a city. I mean, it could be a city if we want it to be, but I think purely based on the premise of your openings of, hey, we don't have a lot of time, you would make it a town so you could limit how many people were actually in it. So I think there would be like one person that could possibly know, and they go to him and he's like, yeah, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. But like in the next town over, or maybe it's 2 towns over, there's somebody who might be able to help you type thing, so that they have another place to go after. It's not just kind of a, oh, well, now that you finish your first quest, go do what you want, do whatever you like, give them options.
Yeah, so I think it would be like good to create someone within this town. Not necessarily for us right now, but I think it would be a good option to like create somebody, 10 minutes, doesn't have to be very long. Create someone in this town who, like, while they don't know what this item is, they are, not renowned within the town, but they're known within the town as someone who's, like maybe a librarian.
See, I
like
would just make it like the leader of the town. Like I would make everybody else kind of more of a like they live their lives and they are happy to do it that way. And maybe like the mayor is someone who has aspirations of leaving and going into further forms of government, so he knows the areas around and he's a little bit more involved in that.
Yeah, see, for me, what I would do is I would definitely use the mayor, but I would kind of probably, because if I'm wanting to like stretch this out, and make it kind of interesting, I'd probably have the mayor send them to someone close to the town, like a wizard who kind of has like, who lives outside, and maybe have like a fun little puzzle thing that they kind of go through, like illusions. They have to go through a forest to where like this wizard has set up these illusions to scare people off so that they can't get to his his place. And then that wizard kind of is like, well, I studied X, Y, and Z, and I don't know exactly what this is, but this is where I can send you to look further into this, right? Whether that's a library or an academy or something like that. So that way you give them a couple quests within one, and you make them interesting and fun by like having all these cool little items and things that they find along the way, like a little illusions and puzzles that they kind of have to get through in order to get through this enchanted forest. And then they kind of are pushed throughout on their way out of town. So I think that's probably what I would end up doing. And then like it sends them to another place, and it gives them an objective to go, to a bigger city. And then, with a bigger city, you can open up the floodgates. So I think that's probably what I would do. But I would definitely use the town leader as like a person of interest for sure, because I think I'd have the town leader be part of the people who's like accusing them of having these issues with this air crash. So they would already know him. And then once it's kind of settled, he would then kind of like, oh, well, maybe you want to go see Master, Arathar over in the woods, like, and that would be a little side quest that they could go and do, or they could just leave, or they could just go to a town. So, yeah, I think that's probably what I would do.
Mm-hmm. Well,
cool.
On to the topic. So this week is kind of a continuation of last week's episode, as we talked about Laith Kralnabur, which in his story I mentioned a elven city, and the elven city had such a cool story that I was like, this is 100% going to be our topic next week. Now, Aaron always thought the name of it was funny, so we'll see how well he can hold out for this episode.
I just have to know why the heck they named it. That's the real question.
The elven realm that we were talking about is called Evermeet.
You thought I was going to say something.
I did. I expected it, and I gave you the time, but you didn't.
That's 1 point for Aaron, 0 points for Josh. We're going to keep track.
It has an incredibly cool basic premise that went terribly wrong, but I didn't go into much detail about it then. In short, Evermeet was an island from the Forgotten Realms that was created and affected by elven high magic. Originally, it was a part of Arvandor, the realm of the Seldarin, the elven gods. So the basic premise of this was, let's grab a piece from heaven, bring it to the material plane, and protect it and keep it as a home or mecca for elves. Now, this didn't go as well as they hoped. The elves prepared for this spell for hundreds of years, gathering everything that they would need, and they built a large tower, a large white granite tower. At the time, it was the tallest tower built by elves. Inside was a large spiral staircase running up the tower, and on each step there was a stone seat engraved into the wall and labeled with the name of the elven high mage who would sit there during the casting. That idea alone sounds so cool. It's this large white granite tower, and on the edge, on the walls along the stairs going up, there's just like engraved seats for each of these incredibly powerful mages.
I know we've kind of talked a little bit about this before, but what's your thought? Because I don't remember, but what's your thought about like magocracies? Do you like the concept of like a flying city that is a total like magocracy that's super powerful and stuff like that?
I mean, if you ask me personally, no, I don't like magocracies. But if you like for stories, I love magocracies. Would I want to live in one? Okay. No.
Do you think they're? I don't know. I think they're really overdone. I mean, I have some in my world, obviously, but like.
I mean,
a really common fantasy trope.
I'm not 100% sure where you got magocracy, because we're not talking about a magocracy, but...
No, we're not. I was just based off of the powerful wizard.
Yeah, that it was... yeah. They actually came from all over the elven areas nearby. All the the powerful mages from each area.
Yeah, I mean...
I think they're
I don't
done
know.
a
I'm
lot,
not
but I
sure.
think they're fun, and I think in a D&D setting, you should have at least one.
Yeah, true. You're right. You're right.
You don't have
Yeah,
to
I
make
like
it the
them. I
center
like them,
stage.
but
You don't have to make it the side stage. You could literally make it be a random background nation, but just like the flair of a Magocracy is fun.
yeah, the thing that I don't necessarily enjoy about the classic trope of like there was a magocracy that was super magically gifted and powerful, and then something horrible happened to them, like the gods didn't like them because they were getting too strong or whatever. The thing I don't like about that trope is like, I don't know, why does one magocracy society, when it like explodes and dies, why do we just like not be able to use that magic anymore, or don't know, or can't figure it out anymore? To me it's just kind of weird. I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, it makes sense, I guess, but I don't know.
No, there's a lot of things that we don't know that we did historically as humans that we don't know how they did it. Like building the pyramids, we're like, how in the world did that even work? Like I don't know exactly where I
Yeah.
read this, but I read that we don't have the ability to, like, we don't understand how with their technology level they were able to do that.
Yeah, we have guesses, but we don't necessarily know exactly the method they used to do it. But the point being is we could do it and do it better in our current society because we're more technologically advanced.
Yeah.
And so like I get like I guess the idea is like the magocracy was technologically advanced and there was some sort of disastrous problem that sent the earth back into the stone age. Like for example, if we did like nuclear apocalypse or whatever and everybody dies except for like a tiny amount of people, right? Then we'd probably get sent back pretty far. But you know,
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
just
like
an
there are
interesting concept.
cities that we know existed that have gotten like horribly destroyed through apocalyptic level events that we aren't sure how things were there. So I could see how info and knowledge can be lost.
For sure. No. Yeah, and I'm not saying that I can't, but I just always see the steady progression of technology in real life, and I like to equate it to my fantasy worlds just because like I think it would still probably be the case.
Yeah.
Unless there was such a disaster that you lost everything,
Mm-hmm.
which again is possible.
I mean, also a lot of these magocracies in fantasy, they make them have very sheltered. They kind of hide their knowledge.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely true. That's definitely a thing that they're hidden within the clouds type thing.
Yeah. Well, back to the topic.
Anyways,
After that,
continue on. That was a long divergence.
yes, it was. They brought, as I said, all of the most powerful high elven mages from every race of elves except drow, because they traditionally were not willing to work with other elves, and sea elves, who are traditionally non-magical. They all gathered in their seats, and I tried to find like how many there were or any sort of numbers. I couldn't find anything that gave me a number for how many people were here. But they all gathered in their seats around the inside of the tower, and a wild elf, Starleaf, took place in the center, and they all began to cast, using their bodies to pull in the power of the weave, mixing it with their life force, their soul, and combining them to create elven high magic, as what you can assume most of them had done many times before at this point, as they're all the most powerful or well known in their area. And elven
This
high magic
sounds
is
like a
definitely
disaster.
and is elven high
Sounds like a
magic
disaster waiting to happen for sure.
elven high magic is definitely something that this society has used before and will continue to use, but probably not to this scale. As they were completing this ritual, things got out of control. The weave that they'd started to channel into the spell with their life force began to pull more and more until they couldn't hold on to their own soul. And every single one of those high mages died except Starleaf, who watched all of them die from the middle. As they died around her, she felt the tremors in the earth, which she didn't realize yet was Faerun literally tearing apart. This became known as the First Sundering. This caused the coast that they were upon to be torn apart through earthquakes and floods. Now, they had strategically placed where they were going to cast this spell based on the surrounding elven societies that were around the area. Now, because of the problems with the spell and what was going wrong, it now caused heavy casualties to all the elven societies around where they had placed this tower. Now, one of the biggest long-running effects that this had was on a major city of Autornash, and it was destroyed. It was a dark elf city in the southern Faerun that worshipped Veron. The destruction of this city killed a lot of dark elves that resisted Lolth. And with their deaths, Lolth now had the power and the following to become the major deity of the Drow. Now, this sounds pretty bad, but it was actually worse because the people for and against this plan were pretty cut and dry. It seems the elves of the north were mostly for it, wishing for this safe land for elves, while the southern elves opposed this plan, and the already present tensions between the two groups only grew over this against each other mentality, these opposite ideals. Now, this city that was destroyed because of they did do this spell was a southern city, which made it far worse, the tensions. Despite the massive destruction this caused, the magic was successful, and the island of Evermeet rose from the depths of the sea. In this, Starleaf met Coralon Larathan and Angharad, two elven deities that revealed that the elves were only successful in their high magic with the aid of these two deities. Now, Evermeet it turned out to be exactly what they wanted it to be. This kind of home away from home for elves, this kind of paradise, this mecca that they could protect and keep as their own. But whenever you have something as attractive and beautiful as that,
Has Evermeet? Yep.
there are many people who would wish to take it or destroy it.
That's
and
true.
Over time, it was attacked by many, many, many groups. Or
Oh no.
Daemon Fae to the Zentarum. And through it all, it has stood. But when
Proud
magic...
and tall.
Yes, proud and tall. A real Evermeet of a location.
Good.
But when magic started going crazy, Evermeet and its people that live on it got scared. And in a very unexplained way, something happened, and in the chaos, Evermeet hid in the Feywild, where it resides to this day. So it was kind of for nothing. I mean, it lasted for thousands of years on the material plane, but they summoned it on the material plane. It caused a bunch of problems. Then magic started going crazy a few thousand years later, and now it's permanently on the Feywild.
Here's another question.
There is still the floating island. The floating island that came from underneath the ground still is on the material plane, but the actual population and people that live on it are no longer there. What is your question?
My question is how likely, or how likely do you see a bunch of powerful wizards? If there was a ton of powerful wizards in the world, how likely would they get together and try and do some sort of major spell of some kind that is world changing? Do you think that would be a pretty high possibility?
I would say 50 to 75%.
Yeah. Okay. I was just curious because, again, I know that's a pretty famous trope, and I love it. First of all, I love rituals that go wrong.
I always try to relate, the way I want magic to work in my world is the way science works. So in our world, I always look at science for how I want magic to work. So there is, to an extent, competitions between different labs and such. But overall, when one sees that it is losing, traditionally the more important thing for the people that work there is not the rivalry. The more important thing is that this science gets done.
Yeah, the advancement of science and knowledge.
Because I mean, for some it's a nationalist thing, but for most it is not. It is simply science to learn and discover things. And so, like, I've been watching this YouTube channel called Bobby Broccoli, and he does these long.
That sounds like the most you thing I've ever heard in my life.
That's just what his name is on YouTube, but his videos are all long documentaries on really interesting topics. And he just finished a 3-part, probably over 3 hour long videos, with the 3 combined, on the failed super collider that they were trying to make in America, and how everything that was going on with the kind of problems behind the scenes and the problems politically with trying to get the right amount of money and the mismanagement of funds, and the just going really, really in depth on it. And it was really interesting. But in the end, the scientists that were working on it, when they realized, hey, our super collider in America is never going to happen, or it's clearly not going to happen, the first thing they tried to do was say, hey, we got to get in with the Europe's thing, what Europe's doing. We have to get in on it, because it's more about the science than it is about, hey, we're going to build a bigger one. They just realized when they were building this that right now America has this fervor to be better. So if we play on that, we might be able to get science advanced.
Right, but in the end, they have to go and get help, or
go to end up joining in on a joint multinational scientific research center where each country donated some money. So instead of this one where it was originally trying to be America doing it by themselves, it was everybody has to go in.
Now, I don't remember if you said this or not, but what was the exact, did they have an exact thing that caused the issue with the magic spell? Was there a exact reason? I know you said it absorbed too much life energy, but did somebody sabotage it? Was it what was the
no,
deal
it wasn't
that?
Sabotage or anything. It didn't go into details on exactly what had happened. I mean, it just said during the spell casting, it just kind of absorbed the souls of all the casters, which it might be they needed more energy than could be gathered in one spot at one time, because as we know, Mystra has made it so you cannot cast 10th, 11th, or 12th level spells alone anymore. So there might just not have been enough energy, and so the spell looked for energy where it could find it, and it found it in the souls of the people casting. Because part of the problems that were also caused by this were not just physical problems, like what I was saying with earthquakes and floods. Many people claim that the problems with the weave are still a result of this spell. So what happened is there's weird pockets now where for some reason magic's super high in this area and super low in this area, when it used to be uniform across the whole world. And so things
this
like
thing
this
obviously did something.
Yeah, it messed up, and so suddenly there's areas where there's lots of magic, and then there's no magic, and it's they think it still relates to this first sundering, which, as you can tell from the name of it being called the first sundering, there is a second sundering.
Yeah, which is a big yikes.
It is a big yikes for sure. We actually talked about the second sundering in episode 72.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I didn't think you would.
Was that when never mind. No, it's not.
You're I don't have
my
it.
thought was, no, I don't know. But first thing that I thought of when we were talking about this spell failing is I was like, well, now Starleaf is a lich because she tricked all of them and now absorbed all their souls and turned into a lich.
Nope,
That's what I
Starleaf
thought.
was horrified by it. Starleaf, I mean, just imagine that. You're just like with all your powerful friends, and then suddenly you literally, because she was like standing in the middle of this circle where everybody was around, but some were going up into this tower, and just has to watch literally because everyone had a view of her. Every one of them die.
Did it say why she survived?
No, I couldn't find any specific reason. I think it just didn't need that much energy.
Just it got there, it got all needed, and you were the last one.
Yep, it's pretty rough. Now, what do you think? What do you think we should make from this?
Boy, that is a really, really good question.
Do we make a location like Evermeet where they do this crazy summoning to try to get this awesome landmass, or do we do like a magic problem?
I kind of want to do a magic problem.
Do we start?
Because I like that idea. What was that?
And also, do we start a new world?
I don't think we start a new world, and the reason I don't think we start a new world is because I have kind of an idea of what I want a magic problem to be.
Cool.
I think we should eventually start a new world though, because this one is going pretty long, and it's been pretty fun and a pretty good one. So, but I was thinking, what if we did a magical problem where they tried to rebuild the creation energy?
Interesting. Now,
I think
who
that's
is
a
doing
really
this?
good
Because it's not the gods. Because the gods don't
it's
like
not
it.
the gods at all.
Yeah. So who is doing this?
I don't know. Like, I think there's a bunch of ways we could go about it. We could go an order of wizards, like a society of like a magocracy, maybe, like we talked about earlier in the beginning of the episode. It's not like a magocracy is trying to recreate for like the purposes of magic, right? My other thought was you could go the route of somebody evil trying to do it so that he can create something. So that could be a really fun big bad evil guy who's, or one big bad evil guy who's trying to recreate creation so that he himself can create things to rule the world or whatever. So you could do something like that, which I think could be really fun too. And then you could do, you could just do like a society trying to, or like a religious organization trying to bring back human potential to create gods and deities. So, there's several different options that we could go with for this kind of build. And I think either any one we go with, especially the first and the last one, like the magocracy one and the religious organization.
I think I have a way
I want it to end in a complete disaster.
Yeah, okay. I think I have a way of narrowing it down, though, so we can figure out what we want. Let's start with this. Do we want it to be nefarious or beneficial? Like, what's the reasoning behind it?
Man, that's such a hard question. What do you like better? What do you think?
I like both. I think there's some fun that can be had with it was an evil plot gone wrong, and there's also some fun with it's a good plot.
Do we do both? And here's what I mean by that. Do we make two separate events, one of which is occurring during the campaign, and that kind of gives us our storyline, and this first happened before that, and the one person is so say we did the first one was good, like it was a magocracy trying
how about this? How about this? How about this?
Energy.
I like your idea of doing both, but what if one group starts it, something happens, and they all die, and another group finishes it? And so, like, one of the groups is an evil group doing it for evil purposes, and another group is a good group, and the good group is trying to resurrect their god who died for some reason.
Yeah, I'm totally good with that. I think that's a super good idea. Absolutely. And I think we should do good group first started it.
Mm-hmm.
It failed, and then bad group, so that way we have a little bit, like to end the season, we have a little bit of a big bad evil guy that we're kind of throwing in that's a little bit, tangible.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's start group. What are we looking at here? Do we want it to be like an arcane society? Because that's a pretty common thing. Do we want it to be a religious society? Do we want it just to be like a... What are we thinking here? What's most plausible? I guess should be the question I ask. I mean, honestly, if
I
was
think
gonna
I think
go
it's a
with,
religious society because we're having the good group start first. So I think it's mostly like clerics and paladins. Like this is a highly like the culture is so heavily based on the deity.
wait. I when you said cleric and paladin, what if we do something totally different than kind of where our brain is going? And what if we did? So when the creation energy exploded, we talked about a little bit like there's some like demons and stuff that kind of came out of tears in reality, and they're kind of like all around in that area where the old creation energy used to be. What if we have like a crusade essentially that is a mission of clerics, paladins defending wizards, like the arcane like community, as they try to dive back into this scarred landscape and repair the creation, and it goes horribly wrong.
Sorry, what are they trying to fix?
So like we have where this, the creation energy was stored that got blown up by the gods, right?
Yeah.
And when that thing exploded, all sorts of calamities occurred, right? We talked about storms, we talked about, all sorts of stuff. And what if pieces of that still remain? Not necessarily usable or intact, but pieces still remain. And so there was a crusade essentially to go into this scarred landscape where the gods blew up this creation energy, retrieve the pieces of the creation node, and then use them like an arcane ritual to put it back together. And so there was an interesting like cleric and holy war mixed with the arcane to like support them to try and essentially rebuild this creation node. And what I'm thinking is they come up with all these notes and rituals to recreate it, and they all die. Like they all get killed in this area. Either the ritual goes wrong, or as they're ritually summoning whatever these creatures are that are around it, attack them even, in greater numbers than they were expecting, and it's a complete disaster. Or maybe a few escape with their lives, like maybe a famous adventuring party or something kind of escape with their lives. Time then passes, these notes and things kind of disappear into obscurity, right? But not really. And either a group or an entity or
I kind of like to think it's someone who like their family member was one of the ones who perished, and I don't know if they have like a vendetta against the gods or something.
I mean, we could. There's a couple things that we could do that I thought might be interesting. One, we could do like one of the people who was with them was like a spy or who was evil in the first place and was trying to sabotage the mission the whole time and ended up succeeding because they wanted to use the creation energy for their own like dead deity, like their own like killed god to bring it back. And so that was part of the reason why it failed. And now that person now roams with the knowledge and information, trying to figure out or find the last pieces or find a place where they can do the ritual. You could do something like that. Or you can do... I kind of want to stay away from like the, family member vendetta thing. Because like I think... I don't know. I think I just want to stay away from that for this particular thing.
Okay.
My thought is just like, the person who comes upon it just wants to bring back this entity or wants to, or even themselves become a god, which is a really, really common trope in D&D because, people would definitely want to do that, right? Heck, even in real life, we have religions where you can become your own god. So I think it'd be really fun for this like wizard who's studied, this history for a long time, comes across, learns about this ancient ritual and crusade that happened, and maybe even could hire the party in a way to go into this like Badlands and recover some missing piece or something that they need, or a little bit of knowledge that they need. And that could be interesting too.
Yeah. I kind of like the idea of the party being involved.
The other thing, and again, I'm going to say the other thing a lot, but the other thing we could do is we do like the flying city route where we have this arcane society or, arcane and religious society that is just trying to bring back creation, the power of creation. Like humans used to be, humanoids used to be able to create so much just with beliefs and thoughts. And they want to do that again. They want the world to be able to do that again. And so they create a society of arcane excellence and arcane achievement to an arcane power to try and not rebuild, but build from scratch a new creation node, which could be really fun too. I like either of those. I think are really fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could do a whole crashed city thing where the city crashes to the ground, and by the end of the campaign, you're racing somebody to stop this ritual from occurring.
Well, so we already know what the end of the campaign is, so this has got to be like a mid-campaign thing.
Yeah. I mean, could be either or. I mean, you can have 3 or 4 different, plot lines within the campaign.
Yeah.
Which one do you like better?
I'm not sure. Which is one calling to you more than the other?
I like both a lot, actually. And I could even see both happening in history, like a crusade through the Badlands trying to, repair the creation node. I think I could, like, maybe right after it happened, like in history, right after the creation node exploded, they gathered, 50% of the population, right, to like go and fight back and try and repair the creation node with newfound magics that they possessed. And it failed, and they killed a huge percentage of the population, plunging the world into kind of like a time
well,
of
so
despair.
I always took it early on as that the gods, when they destroyed the creation, the energy, it was not known to anyone what that was, except for that kind of small tribe that was there that was protecting it.
Yeah. No, I mean that's that is definitely kind of what we have, but I think it could be interesting if somehow humanity discovered it.
Well, more what I'm meaning is that I think it. So I'm thinking this first attempt doesn't happen for thousands of years after it happened. Then somebody discovers writings and stuff, discovers the tribe and where it was, and they start to build up an army and a society. And when they start,
they go
building this up
and do this.
Yes, they try and do it. Now I don't even know if they let it be super well known what they're doing until they begin to do it. So as they're building up forces, they're not telling everybody, this is why I'm doing this.
Well, it could be interesting too if we if we did like a 1-2 combo and we have this whole, what if we did like a 1-2 combo where we have it so like this group build this society on the outskirts of where this like disaster occurred. Okay. Their whole goal is to like build up this army and this arcane energy and this means to try and repair the creation node. They charge in and it fails. In doing so kind of makes matters worse. It expands, and like the disaster that follows makes the storm stronger, makes the issues, worse. And the ones who retreat come back to society, and as they're like fending off, the attacks within their society, they use some sort of ritual to raise the city and escape whatever disaster was occurring. So you could do something like that. Then we have a direct connection where like the ancestors, and they continue this work up in this flying city for thousands and thousands of years. Maybe they returned with like a shard of this creation energy or creation node, and they're trying to nurture and build it. And then as they're trying to regrow it and build it, another disaster happens where, this creation energy is so unstable that it like blows up and the city falls to the ground, and it's the end of the society finally. And the end of the creation era, right? The end of the attempts to recreate creation. So you could combine them if you wanted. That might be a little too convoluted, right? Or it might be a little bit too like...
Well, so what I kind of like the idea of that, of your with the floating city and all. What I think, this is more just a side note that I think would be fun. I would have the area where the kind of what remains of the creation energy. I think it's full of mountains now. And I think what's happening is that the floating city is floating above the ground, and it's trying to connect them once more. So every few years, the city has to kind of move a little bit, and it's now created this mountain range underneath it of where the city has moved as the creation energy is trying to join it up with the world again.
Wait, what do you mean? Wait, what do you mean? I'm a little confused.
You said floating city. You said the floating city is of the survivors of this attempt that only
Right.
made things worse. Their floating city is an anomaly. It is a problem as the creation energy sees it. So what little creation energy that is still exist, that's what they're trying to kind of revamp still and
Right.
and fix. They keep the city around where it is, like above, but around where it is. And every time it slowly starts to the earth begins to build up beneath it. And so now there is like this mountain range of where the creation energy has started to build up stuff underneath the floating city to connect it once more to the ground.
So the creation energy is creating land to try and reclaim its other creation shard. Is that what you're getting at? Or
Yeah, I didn't really see it as a shard or anything.
I don't know what it is either. It's just
I just think there's some sort of trace element of it flung off, and that is what is the floating city. I don't know if it's a shard or.
I like this idea of having like a trace where you can see where this city has been, and maybe this city isn't known about really in society very much, right? Because it's up in the sky and stuff. But what if there's like in the Badlands?
I can go twice as high.
Yeah. But what if we did like in the Badlands? There is sections of the Badlands that are pristine and normal, like an oasis in a desert, because where they've tried to regrow creation energy, sometimes they've partially succeeded and they've reclaimed part of the Badlands. And so there's like a strip in the Badlands that's like reclaimed, that they've reclaimed. They've been successful here and there, right? That could be really fun. Because mountains, I mean, I like the idea of mountains, but like, I don't know, building a giant mountain out of like creation energy, I don't know. I'm not sure.
I think it's incredibly slow. I think it's incredibly slow.
Yeah, I mean, if we did mountains, I think that would be probably what I would
like
say.
1,000 years per mountain.
But I don't know. I like the idea of like within the Badlands, there's like, you know, a strip of life that has been created from this floating city, and if like you follow the sections of life, you can find where the floating city is. Like if you follow with like in the Badlands, you go from sections of life to section of life, kind of like what we talked about. I mean, couple seasons ago with like the traversing through with the traveler god who had like those lamps that you would rest at. That would be very, very fun to like go from like places of life and sanctuary within the Badlands to places of life and sanctuary. Could be very interesting. You could do something like that.
Yeah.
A literal mountain range could be fun too. That's like created, like over thousands and thousands and thousands of years of the city moving. I just don't know, like the creation energy is still strong enough to build mountains, or what's the reasoning behind the mountains appearing there? It's just the pure creation energy trying to be regrown or rebuilt.
Well, I mean, the idea of trying to reclaim what it lost, because I don't think in this world there is a spell that could allow a city to float.
Right. Yeah. I mean, maybe.
So I think it is 100% part of the creation energy is the only reason there's now a floating island.
Agreed, for sure.
So it's trying to get that back. Because it didn't want to be destroyed. It was the gods who destroyed it. So it is trying to rebuild itself like any living thing would.
Okay. I see where you're going with it. All right. Yeah, I like that. I think that's good. Are these mountains still pretty badlandy because it's growing out of the destruction zone?
Yeah. I like the idea that you had of there also being a... Actually, no. I think there might be one or two that are like I think the majority of them are Badlandy, but I think, as you said, there are a few that aren't, as they successfully were able to cause life and growth to happen. And so maybe every few years, like every 100 years or so, there's like a new river that suddenly comes out of the Badlands.
Or, I mean,
And what's happening is that they are successful, and they get a small little like lake or something at the top of one of these, and it slowly starts to drain, and they eventually drain into each other and create this river that now the rest of the world sees outside of the Badlands. Suddenly there's a new river.
or maybe. So I like this idea. Um, I think I like even more that there would be like, instead of like a river, maybe it's like a bog where over time like this swamp has formed because like they've created water that's, like drained off of the mountain, or they've created, vegetation that's, died over time. So I think it'd be fun to do like a bog that doesn't really make sense why it's there. So society still doesn't know, right? There's like this, water. I mean, there's like a swamp essentially that, maybe it's a relatively dry area, so it doesn't really make sense that, this bog is here, right? And so it's kind of like a mystery within the, part of the world where like, why is this, nasty swamp exist within just outside the Badlands? Because, like the reality is these people have been trying to recreate creation for so long that, over thousands and thousands of years, they've created a bog that, because they've been, building lakes and stuff, like they've been trying to recreate the world again, which I think could be really fun. It could also be fun if this wizard society has no concept of the rest of the world, because they're stuck floating where only the creation energy is. So they can't, if they leave, their city will collapse because the creation energy is what's making it float, right? So I think that could be fun too, where like if the party even goes there, it's completely mind-blowing that there's another group, right? In this city's mind, they're trying to bring back the world as they know it, right? They can't see anything but this Badlands, right? They've never witnessed the world not this way. So it could be very interesting to do something like that too.
It's kind of like a Brotherhood of Steel from Fallout, where they think they're rebuilding the world, but they also don't see that there is a world trying to happen around, and they're just, if anything, being a detriment to it most of the time.
Yeah, and that could be really fun to do something like that.
Well, I think that I'll call it there.
Yeah.
For episode 87 of Dungeoneer.
Heck yeah.
Well, thank you for listening. And if you listen to us on any podcasting apps with ratings and reviews, it really helps the show. If you write a review, it shows you're engaging and that the show is actually worth watching and listening to. If you would like to write to us, you can write to us at dungeoneered@hotmail.com. We'd love to hear if you have ideas for topics, lukewarm opens, or just want to talk to us about something cool you made, or something that we inspired you, or something you liked about the show. We'd love to hear it all. Anything else you can add there?
Nope, don't think so.
Okay. Well,
I hate you. I hate you so much.
as I always say,
Gosh dang it.
always remember to be the sharpest barrel in the bunch. See you next time.
Bye.